What up, y'all? DCFAYGOGUY. Today we are going to be reviewing the brand new album from Alla Xul Elu, Gods of Evil Rise. Now, by the time you guys are watching this review, the album has been out for 2 weeks. For me, it's been about a week. I'm recording this on Sunday the 18th. This album right here, I'm going to do my best to not compare it too much to other bodies of works. I want to make it a point to give this album the proper shine that it deserves, to give Alla Xul Elu the proper shine that they deserve. This album is absolutely fucking amazing, and I've made it a point now after several listens. I have honestly lost track of how many times I've listened to this album. I've come to the conclusion and I've come to the stance where I'm really kind of declaring this album to be on the level of a Joker card. Not to say that this sounds like a Joker card, that this is like a Joker card. The way that this album is put together, the way that all the production is, the way that this is mixed, the little skits, kind of interludes that run tracks together. This was a very thought out album, which honestly a lot of Xul's albums are this way. But there's something about that extra element of Mikey Clark in this, kind of brings it to that level. This album definitely feels like this is going to go down as a magnum opus for Alla Xul Elu. And it's just legendary, the fact that they got Mikey Clark. And I think that that is such a testament to the album itself, and it's what makes the album very legendary. This album, now this thing has been, for those who don't know, in the making for 4 years now. And it's been so long that this album has been hyped up that in 2022, when I started listening to Xul, I told myself then, before I got into Xul, early 2022, I was like, yo, when this new Mikey Clark album drops, I'm going to check it out, and I'm curious if this will be the album that finally gets me into them. Little did I know that within a couple months, I would start listening to Alla Xul Elu and would join the fucking wait with everybody else for this album. Again, been in the making for 4 years. I would safely say that this thing has been done for at least 2 of those 4 years. It's just kind of been in limbo. Obviously, there's record deals, there's things that go on behind the scenes that kind of held this album up. So it did kind of build a lot of hype, and I've talked to a couple people where that hype kind of didn't meet expectations. But I also think that for some people, maybe the fact that it was produced by Mikey Clark automatically just set such a bar for it. I don't personally know. I personally didn't feel that way at all. I can't speak for other people, but I think that this album really met all expectations for me and blew them out the fucking water. This record is definitely going down as my favorite Alla Xul Elu record, and I don't know if and when that they'll be able to top it. It's legendary to me. And I have to attest a lot of that, not so much to just Mikey Clark, but Xul themselves. Going into this album, I felt that they knew what they needed to do with a lot of these beats. Kind of leading up to this album, I did my video where I talked about Mikey Clark makes albums great. We went over South of Hell from Boondocks. We went over Gang Rags from Blaze Ya Dead Homie, and we kind of highlighted The Tempest just a little bit. And, you know, kind of the big thing here from Robbie from Do It From The Underground was that just because you have this great piece of, paraphrasing again, just because you have like great music doesn't mean artists always know what to do with that music. And I think that that very firmly is the case with Gang Rags and South of Hell. I think, in my opinion, out of the two, I think South of Hell I like more than Gang Rags. And I think Gang Rags had such an outer influence that Blaze himself didn't really do a whole lot himself with those beats. That makes sense to me. So really going into Gods of Evil Rise, I was really listening to what they did with this. And a lot of these elements, they really showed their Juggalo influence. This, to me, was a reminder. These guys grew up as Juggalos. They grew up listening to ICP, and they grew up listening to the first 6 Joker cards that Mikey Clark produced the majority of. What, 4.5 out of 6? Right? 5.5 out of 6? 5.5 out of 6. 5.5. So Mikey Clark really kind of I mean, you have to imagine, I have to imagine if I am in Xul's position, right? And I get in the studio with Mikey Clark, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is kind of live up to those stories that you hear about the fact that Mikey Clark has these just crates of records everywhere. And I'm going to go crate digging, or being that we're in more of a digital age, I feel like you're going to go find old beats that he has or old things that he's just been sitting on and like want to listen to them and just find different things that I'd want to do. And I really kind of feel like maybe that's what happened. Again, I don't know. But that's something that I felt going into this. It's like some of these beats, they feel familiar to me. And I think the reason that is knowing how Mikey Clark is. He doesn't really throw anything away. All of the Forgotten Freshness albums, most of the early Forgotten Freshness albums, I should say, most of the Forgotten Freshness in general. If there's one thing that those albums have taught us, it's that they keep demos. If you've ever watched Mikey Clark do a live stream on Instagram, he's still got old demo tapes from recording sessions back in the 90s with ICP. So he keeps a lot. And I have to imagine that that's still the case today, even in the digital age. I have to imagine he's got a hard drive somewhere just fucking loaded with shit that were beats that he started and then they tweaked to make a change for. I mean, the biggest example of this, I would say, is Hey Vato, which ended up becoming Wagon Wagon. Very similar sounding songs because the beat was reworked. So a couple of the tracks on here, like Paint the Town Red, Horns Over Halos, Till We Meet, I would say even not Make Believe, Let It Burn. There's production, there's beats, there's sounds in those beats that sound familiar. For me, Let It Burn kind of reminds me of Three of a Wizards off of Gang Rags. You know, Till We Meet is very much in the line of sounding like Dead Body Man. Horns Over Halos, Paint the Town Red, those sound very like early Bang Pow Boom, maybe the Tempest era. So like when I'm saying and making these connections, to me, it's when they went in, I have to imagine they were given like, hey, these are beats that I already have made. If you want to listen to them and find some that stand out. I have to imagine maybe at one point that was something that was that happened when they went into doing this album, was just showing a selection of beats that already are made. And maybe a lot of them were just scrapped ones or unused ones that maybe Violent J heard or whomever listened to it and they liked it, but they wanted it reworked. I'm going to say Violent J because we know just from the history of ICP that that's a lot of the case. What has happened is Mikey Clark comes with this and then the two of them kind of collaborate and rework the beat. So a lot of these beats, that's kind of what I felt, is like these were demos or early versions of other songs that we hear or have heard now, or maybe ones that he had held on to and he just kind of reworked in his own way. Like Till We Meet, straight up, the bass line from that sounds like Dead Body Man. And I've seen other people make this connection. And for me, that's what makes that song so great, so stand out, is it's a familiar feeling with a familiar theme. Like they went into that and they did more or less like their own version of Dead Body Man without doing their own version of Dead Body Man, if that makes any sense. They went in, did their own version of it, luring people into their fucking house, killing them, having them for dinner, and then saving parts of their bodies to make the fucking furniture around them. Absolutely incredible, creative, and didn't make any references to Dead Body Man. So in a way, it's like if you didn't know they were Juggalos, you would feel like, oh man, this feels like very familiar. But once you know that they're Juggalos, it's like you definitely feel the influence from them being Juggalos in this album. I haven't talked about any of the tracks. I've just dove straight in. God, this album's fucking amazing. I've listened to it so many fucking times. So I think what I want to do is, rather than go through the track list, because I think at this point, this album is so epic and so legendary that everybody's going to listen to it if they haven't, or if people have already listened to it. So rather than go through and give you the entire track list, I want to go through and give you guys my top 5. And I've got Paint the Town Red.
When we paint the town red, 36 fell dead. This my suicide diatribe, copied and pasted, face, lip, nip, tuck, tear it up and just taste the human race.
Till We Meet.
Nice to meet you, my name is Lee. Welcome to my home. I live here with all my brothers. I told them leave us alone, so wipe your foot off on the welcome mat. His name is Matt, his mustache collects the dirt up off the floor. I'll take your back, place it
Let It Burn.
No more screams, now it's quiet as fuck, and everything's on fire. The choir's a pile of guts. I made the angels proud, they telling me as they bleed, and now the choir haunts my mind, and every night I hear them sing.
If you see a church on fire, let it burn. The preacher man's a liar. Let it burn.
Make Believe.
I'm in a cornfield talking to a corpse I killed.
There's just something nice about the way you die. I love the way you scream.
What does that mean?
If it ain't make believe, I know that heaven isn't made for me.
And then this one was tough because my top 5 has changed a lot. I've had songs on there that I took off, added back on, and took off. But I think I firmly want to land on my 5th one being Heard the Horde.
Screams they sing a symphony. That's when we heard the
Understand, brother and sister alike, walking ever vigilantly, spiraling down the staircase to hell.
I got a couple of friends, I think they're up to the task. They go together in the darkness, always wearing a mask. I know that if I would ask, all polite, they would probably follow me into the gates of hell, wholeheartedly commit.
So with Heard the Horde, this one, I really like the beat. I like the way that everybody flows on this. I want to say Lee Carver's verse specifically is one that really stands out. Just the way that he rode over that, so fucking great. I like the kind of message and story of the song, how they heard the horde and now they're herding the horde. It's kind of a double entendre in that way. Like, they heard the masses out there. Like, and I'm going to say this, and I don't know how this might rub people wrong, but I mean, sometimes the truth hurts, right? We can admit that the Juggalo scene has been missing or longing for a certain type of wicked shit, right? I'm somebody who's been listening to a lot of modern day ICP and liking it, but even I can admit that they're not doing as much quote unquote wicked shit as they used to. They're also not as angry and young as they used to be, so I don't expect them to continue to do something, especially if it's a forced thing. So in a lot of ways, Zool heard the horde of Juggalos, heard the horde of fans that are longing for some wicked shit, and they herded them together and transformed them into Zooligans. That to me was something very standout. That was something I took away from this song, and I was like, yo, I like this. And again, I just really like the beat. But there's something else about this song that really kind of hit close for me, and I took kind of maybe onto a personal level. There's a bar in there where Joey Black says, "We're more like a hydra than a fan base. One of us, cut off one of us and another grows in its place." Something along those lines. So if you know about the hydra, you know, you cut off its head, two grow back in its place. For me, that hit very close to home because what was very instrumental into me becoming a Zooligan was 5-piece. Joker's Gallery and Mike Sears. Joker's Gallery reached out to me early 2022 and said, "Hey, I think you would like this band, check them out." And he sent me a song for Super Famous Fun Time Guys. Or I think he told me to go check out their most recent EP, which was Mom's Not Offended, She's Concerned. Loved it, fell in love with them, and they helped bridge the gap for me to finally get into Zool. A few months later, you know, I was slowly, you know, diving into more Fun Time Guys, and they were working obviously with Zool because they were signed to the label. And then one stream, I forget which one it was, Mike Sears straight up was like, "Man, this," he drops the N-bomb, and I'm not going to. He says, "This needs to get into Zool already." He said that, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe tomorrow I'm just going to go listen to some Zool. So I basically turned on, I started on Head of Horns and just made myself listen to Alla Xul Elu. And Head of Horns and specifically Camp Zool, or not Camp Zool, fucking Church of Zool, were the two where it finally clicked for me, and it was over, baby. So I attribute a lot of me being a Zooligan to 5-piece, to Joker's Gallery, and to Mike Sears. And for me, it kind of sucked that going into this album, like, I remember them talking on 5-piece about how excited they were for this album. And I reached out to Joker's Gallery before I did my listening party to see if they, by chance, were going to be doing a listening party on 5-piece. And he said he would check. He didn't really know. There was no really plans to. And I didn't hear back from him, and they never did a listening party. And for me, I'm kind of in uncharted territory now because I'm into a brand new Xul album. And this is actually the second time because Lost Lake Estates was similarly the same. And I kind of went through some motions then when that album dropped. Like, this is a project that they've been hyped for, and I've not heard anything from any of them about this project. And it's weird for me to have the guys that got me into Xul quiet. Crickets. Now, I know Mike Sears is like basically done with Xul. He had some personal shit that happened between them that he took offense to. I won't speak on it. He already has on his own live streams. But he took offense to it, and it's not, kind of in his words, it's just not the same. So I get it with him, and it really fucking sucks that happened for him. And then obviously, 5-Piece kind of broke up. They had their reunion, but, I'm sure they've got a lot going on in their personal lives. But for me, it was just really weird to be in this kind of foreign land where like this brand new Xul project, the one that's been hyped up for 4 years, drops, and the guys that helped get me into it are just not there anymore. And it was that surreal moment of like, I had kind of that flashback to getting into ICP and becoming a Juggalo. Like, my sister was there, always obsessed with ICP, 5 years before I ever got into ICP, and now she don't listen to ICP. It was just kind of, it brought that back, but with Xul. So that line of you cut one off, another grows in its place, that line hit personal for me because the guys that got me into Xul, like, I don't know if they're not into Xul. I know one of them isn't, but that head's now cut off, and now in its place, I'm interacting with the guys on Deck One Dealt. I'm interacting with people in the UPC. So it's like that head cut off, several more grew in its place. I'm talking Xul with those guys. So it hit very close to home for me. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I do miss 5-Piece. I hope they make a return, but yeah, it's very weird. It's definitely very weird to go onto Mike Sears' Twitter page and he's not saying a fucking word about this album. It's like, man, he was so hyped for it. And that sucks that he lost that love. But so yeah, definitely heard the Horde, definitely a top 5. Another one I got is Paint the Town Red. I went with this one because this was a great opening track. And honestly, they could have went either way. They could have went Paint the Town Red or Horns Over Halos. And I think that the order that they picked for this was perfect because you get this really hype kind of anthem. It's very opener. It has me excited to see what Camp Xul is going to be like with them opening with this track. I would hope and assume that that's what they're going to do. And then immediately just throwing the blood on the crowd. It's such a great opener, really sets a very high energy and a very high tone. Now, I don't have Horns Over Halos in my top 5, but I also want to just briefly mention it too. One of the things when it comes to being an artist that if I was ever going to make music, I think one of the hard tasks would be picking the order that the tracks are going to play. So going into this, you have Paint the Town Red into Horns Over Halos, both very high energy. And then the album kind of shifts down just a little bit into the cleansing and it gets kind of dark for a little bit. I like the way that they did that, and I feel like Paint the Town Red into Horns Over Halos. Paint the Town Red is this grandioso opening, and then you get kind of the anthem of Horns Over Halo. And I love that at the end of Horns Over Halos, it kind of does this like fade down. The music kind of drops. You got the guy and his wife from the intro going, fucking Alla Xul Elu new record. That was a great little interlude because it painted a picture in my head of like them, coming up out of the ground. They start painting the town red and they're there kind of like, yo, this is us, Horns Over Halos. We're here to fucking kill everything. And then, for me, the image in my head is them kind of leaving town as that guy's like, fucking Alla Xul Elu. They're leaving town. You have the music fade. Like, they're moving on. The horde of the gods of evil have risen. They're now leaving where they rose from, and they're off to just spread havoc. And you get into the cleansing. They're cleansing the earth. That transition was so beautifully done. Absolutely love it. And that's one of the things that really makes me feel like this is on the level of a Joker card. How thought out the intro was to tie in the mausoleum, to have this grandioso opening, to kind of have an anthem there at the beginning. and transition it into, like, put it into, like, high gear of what this album's going to be for the next several tracks. Great. Absolutely great. That's what makes it legendary and puts it on that level of a Joker card for me. So Till We Meet, I also have in my top 5. I talked about this a little bit already. It's that bass line of Dead Body Man. Like, I'm 1,000% positive that's the same bass line. I meant to go kind of compare them, but it's such a nostalgic click for me back to Dead Body Man of how epic that song is. So I have to put Till We Meet in there because it's such an epic song. Dead Body Man is such an epic song, such a staple, that this song is like an extra little staple now for me with that bass line, with the way that they did it, the way that they did the chorus, absolutely creative. Like, Adam is the armchair, Carly is the curtain, we're having you for dinner, and there's one thing that's for certain, I can't wait. Love the way they fucking did that shit. They absolutely fucking killed it on that, and they did it in a way without directly copying Dead Body Man. And really, a part of me wonders because, and I don't remember when Mikey Clark was on it, he did an interview with Neil on the Subcast where he brought up the story about Dead Body Man and how he almost lost that beat. He was working on it, hit the button, quickly re-hit it, because once you turn it off, what you've been working on is gone. Quickly re-hit it to save it and then work on it the next day. And when he heard what he had already had together, he's like, holy fuck. So that song almost didn't exist. I feel like either him telling that story to Neil, and then subsequently, I think that story has been told. I think that story has also recently been told to Violent J, because he's been talking about it in a couple of like live streams or interviews as well. I think that was either reinvigorated by Till We Meet or vice versa. Like, he remembered that story, remembered almost losing that beat, and maybe he wanted to go back in and kind of recreate another song like it. And that's the result that we got with Till We Meet. I think it's one of those two scenarios. I think Till We Meet was directly inspired by Mike E. Clark remembering about almost deleting Dead Body Man. So I absolutely fucking love that. I also have Let It Burn in my top 5. I went with this one because this song is so dark, it's so wicked, and it for me, it's like I'm not an atheist. I claim more to an agnostic than anything. But this song is it's just so dark about going to a church, setting it on fire, letting the congregation burn. And there's so much depth to this because, like, for me, like, I recognize that there's a lot of people that go to church that aren't evil, horrible people. But there are a shit ton of people that are. They're quick to judge you. If you don't believe what they believe, you're wrong, you're going to hell. And it kind of is a flip on that of like, okay, if you think I'm going to hell, here, you go to heaven, or, you know, you burn. You know what I mean? I'm going to make you burn because you think I'm going to burn. It's very dark and aggressive in that way, and I've had a lot of bad experiences with religious people and the judgment that a lot of people with that have. So anytime that, like, that kind of shit comes up, it's like, sometimes I get angry thinking about like oppressions because of religion and shit. And one thing with this song, it kind of reminded me of another song kind of anti-religion, and that is Christploitation by Fear Factory. That's a very aggressive and angry and hateful song as well. This one is a little bit more, I would say, tolerable to that vein. It's not as aggressive, but just the act of burning a church and a congregation because the preacher is a liar, the sinner's in the choir, just let them burn. And I mean, come on, that hook is so catchy. How do you not sing along to that? I mean, unless you are a Christian and you took offense, then I imagine you're not going to sing along to it. But absolutely fucking loved Let It Burn. Had to throw it in there. I feel like this beat reminds me of Three Evil Wizards. That kind of do 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 do. I was trying to pinpoint what song that reminded me of, and Three Evil Wizards is it. Very, very similar sounding songs with very similar matching energy, I would say, because Three Evil Wizards, you know, we blow your mind, Three Evil Wizard coming at you like. That was a very fun song as well. So absolutely had to put Let It Burn in my top 5. And then the last song on my top 5, and this is actually my favorite song on the album, Make Believe. This track right here, immediately, if you watch the listening party, I immediately like thought like this sounds like they sampled The Trunk, which is one of their, I would say, most popular songs off of Psycho Volume 1. And I think a lot of people really like The Trunk a lot. And it sounds like they sampled it here. And it almost kind of feels like it could be a sequel, if you will, to The Trunk. Maybe not. But just the whole premise of this song of like wanting to kill people, needing to kill people, feeling that urge to kill and just doing it. And really it's the chorus that kind of sealed the deal for me that made me like, I like this song. First of all, the beat, fucking love the beat. High energy, very dark sounding, and again, I feel like it samples The Trunk. But like, you get to the fucking chorus, there's just one thing nice, or there's just something nice about the way you die. The like reverbs and everything they put in, the energy of that chorus, like when I'm listening to it, I'm singing along, and like the do 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 do, I'm usually like going like this. I'm just kind of like vibing out to that fucking part of the fucking chorus. And then you have that like, I just fucking love the energy of this song, and it very much like, it felt nostalgic to some old school ICP. And that was really one of the things that got me into Zool, especially listening to Mausoleum. Rigor Erectus was such a fun song that they reminded me so much of old school ICP and what I fell in love with ICP because of, you know? And it's so awesome to have that same love kind of born into my love for Zool, you know? It's that fun shit that they're doing. And that's ultimately why, I'm going to say this, that's ultimately why I know there are people out there that prefer a certain sound from Zool. They like that boom bap. That's what they want them to do. They want strictly wicked shit. That's not me. I don't want it to always be that. I like that they portray themselves goofy and silly at times, but also dark and wicked. Because that's very much what I fell in love with ICP for. And it feels like they're doing it, but they're doing it in their own way without directly copying ICP. And that's one of the things that I absolutely fucking love about Alla Xul Elu. So I have rambled on for several minutes. I think it's time to call this review. I think it's good to call this a great review, man. This album, so fucking amazing, legendary. Like I said, it's Joker card level for me. They brought their absolute fucking A game. They understood that they needed to bring their A game, and the shit that they did on this album, again, it feels like they pulled on some of their Juggalo influence. Like, they knew going into this fucking studio, they were working with Mike E. fucking Clark, and they were not going to put out a whack-ass album. Now, I'm sure somebody's in the comments right now saying that this album is whack. Music is subjective. If this did not register for you, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. This album is fucking amazing to me. I see so many people clamoring for it. It's absolutely fucking amazing. I wake up with songs in my head. I go to sleep with songs in my head. Absolutely fucking great. I think we have a very good contender for album of the year right here, and we're not even halfway through yet. So tell me down below what you guys thought about Gods of Evil Rise. What were your favorite tracks? What were your standout tracks? I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.